welcome for this third webinar. We will mostly discuss the results of our team today and compare it and introduce really the reflection with the self-determination theory. I mean, that's what we were planning for. We have different discussion. I think what we saw was the gender differences in our team were quite different, so that would be interesting to try to address why. So that's one point we're gonna address, and perhaps now I will give the floor to Gabriel to move on.
Okay, well, thanks, Karine. So I'm juggling with two screens, and clearly two screens are not enough. I need a third one because I want to see you people, I want to see the community of practice, and I want to see the Motiro interface. So I should have thought of that before. But anyway, yes. So as Karine said, we found it very interesting to see that there are some very distinct gender differences, or actually sex differences, if you want to be technical, sex differences, so between men and women. In the Motiro survey results. So we thought it would be a good way of introducing or reviewing self-determination theory by trying to explain these differences. And so for that, I will share my screen and play around with the Motiro app. So just so that you get familiar with how to use the filters and how to sort of see these demographic differences. What I did do is on the community of practice, I posted a few minutes ago the actual a table with the scores, so you can actually see the different scores. And that's actually easier if you want to compare men and women or old people with young people. It's just easier just to put them in two different columns. But anyway, I cannot resist the opportunity of showing off the Motiro app once again. And so I will share my screen. Right now. Okay, so here you have the results. This is the results page. And as you know, we have two ways of visualizing the survey results. One is the dashboard, which is what we'll work on first. And then the other is the report. So the dashboard is organized around the 4 blocks of self-determination theory. So as you probably remember, motivation, we understand motivation as an outcome, as a result of a whole bunch of different things. And this is where, and actually, where is this? There we go. And so here we see the different types of motivational outcomes. We have well-being, and actually, I think this is, no, there's no filter. Okay. So this is the whole team together. We have men and women together. And the gray line is the comparison with all the other staff in the Red Cross Red Crescent movement. So that's about 500-600 other people. So well-being, we score like everyone else in 3.4, which is not very high. Remember, the lowest possible score is 1, and the highest possible score is 5. And, so here we have 3.4. It's not. I mean, okay. Anyway, but the fulfillment levels, the meaning I give to my team, engagements, and even values, we score higher than in the rest of the movement. Just as a reminder, you can actually see the distribution of answers. So, for example, for well-being, we have here the distribution of answers. Actually, you can even see my answers. So I'll take that out.
You're quite fulfilled and engaged.
Yeah, well, I'm doing pretty good. Well, at least when I did this survey, I'm doing pretty good. So you could see, I mean, it's why the score is not great. This question at work, I feel strong and vigorous. Well, this is true every day for, for about 13%, whereas you have a few that rarely feel strong and vigorous. So these are people, that might need to figure out how they can address that issue. Anyway, and so these are the motivational outcomes. Now, if you remember self-determination theory, the basis of self-determination theory is that we all have three basic psychological needs when it comes to motivation, i.e. to have the energy to actually do something. And these three needs are autonomy, the need to feel empowered, autonomous, to have a sense of agency, the need to belong or relatedness, and the need to feel competent, to be confident that you can address the different issues that you might be facing at work. So here we score pretty much like the rest of the movement. So no difference here. Now, our motivation depends also on two types of motivation. One that comes from leadership. So when we say leadership, this is how we're treated in the group, and more specifically, how we feel that the supervisor, our line manager, our supervisor listens to us, or how much we feel heard by that person, how much we feel understood by that person, and how much that person encourages us. What we do in Motiro is we say, well, it's not just the supervisor, actually, all the members of the team should be listening to each other, understanding each other, and encouraging each other. So, and that's what we call leadership skills. And here also we see we score pretty much like the rest of the movement. And then finally, we have what we call the extrinsic motivation. And these are reward, status, and returns. So we thought it'd be interesting to now use the filter function and check out the men in the group. So I'm getting rid of the women, I'm filtering them out, I'm applying. And now we see something slightly different. As you can see here, the men are actually closer to the benchmark than when they were with the women in the same group. If I now have a look at the women, you see that they're much further from the benchmark. So clearly, women are more engaged, and here engagement, actually we can see what engagement is. Engagement is I share my ideas with others to improve the team. This is something that we've seen in the previous modules in the community of practice. So this is an indication that I'm engaged, is I actually share my ideas with the others in the team to improve things. And as you can see, we have among the women a very strong, actually almost 80%, that's 4 out of 5, strongly agree with the statement, and then the rest somewhat agrees. So nobody really disagrees with this statement among the women in the team. Now let's look at the men, and I'm sort of like discovering this with you. So engagement. Okay, as you can see, the men are not as engaged, i.e. you have actually a few who are neutral and some that somewhat disagree with the statement, I share my ideas with others to improve the team. So it seems that women are more engaged in terms of sharing their ideas than the men in this group. Now, we're not really one team, right? But we can pretend just to try to understand self-determination theory. So this is the question now. Why is it that women in this group are more engaged than men? Why is it that, and then I'll just show this again. Why is it that they are more fulfilled, more engaged, that they give more meaning to the team than men? And so I would invite you now to ask yourself this question. In fact, I will even show you the community of practice. And this might help on my screen. And I want you to come up with an assumption. So a kind of an idea statement that you can answer by yes or no with the data and self-determination theory. So idea is not to come up with a sociological theory, because there's probably none that would explain this, but rather to have a look at the data and the graph and have a look at self-determination theory and sort of ponder what type of explanation can I formulate as a simple statement that's right or wrong or true or false, that I can verify with self-determination theory and the data, the survey data. Is it clear? So just keep it to yourself. You know, if you have a piece of paper, you can just scribble on your statements, and then together we will try to see how we can answer that question. So the question is, in your opinion, and actually let me just put it here. Okay. So this is the assignment for us right now. So observe the different scores between men and women and relate these to self-determination theory. If you have any questions on self-determination theory, you can either look in the topic section or you can just ask your question. And then now the assignment is, what, in your opinion, could explain why, on average, women in the community of practice score higher than men in fulfillment, engagement, and meaning? And then here, so in the community of practice, you have the actual scores. So in this column, you have the men, and this column, you have the women. In each row, you have the different indicators, the different items. And to help you, I put in green when it's the higher score, and in pink or orange, the lower score. So I'll give you about five minutes. And if you have any questions, just say it, and then we'll answer it in maybe 3 minutes.
And you can make several assumptions, huh?
Yeah, you can make more than one, yeah. So unfortunately, I cannot show the full table on my screen. But if you're in front of a computer, I invite you to go to the community of practice, and there you'll be able to see it.
Perhaps take also not only the leadership, but take also extrinsic motivation, perhaps a bit less intrinsic motivation, because it's quite similar, but extrinsic motivation is also quite interesting to take men into consideration.
And if somebody has an idea and wants to share his or her thoughts, please don't hesitate. You can post it directly in the community of practice, or you can just blurt it out and discuss it. But I think you would get points if you actually post it in the community of practice. So these are more points for your certificates. So don't be shy. I mean, the idea is just to discuss these results and to figure out how we can explain some of these differences. So what I can do now, as you continue to think, is just to remind you self-determination theory. So self-determination theory says that our levels of motivation really depend on the satisfaction of our 3 basic needs of autonomy, belongingness, and competence. And these are just universal needs. So everybody wants to feel, a little autonomous at least. They want to belong to a group. They don't want to be left out, and they like to feel competent and up to task. Now, these needs can be frustrated or encouraged by leadership. And so in Motiro, we define leadership as, somebody who really knows how to listen, how to show empathy and understanding, and how to encourage others to, well, at least to share their ideas, but to be open to discuss. And then extrinsic motivation is another block, and that's what's afforded by the organization itself. So it's the different processes and the management culture, and we put these in 3 categories: returns, rewards, and status. So returns are the things that you get out of working for the Red Cross, Red Crescent. So it could be opportunities to network, or to get some training or professional development.
Recognition from the family, from the society.
So that's status. So rewards is how you feel recognized for your effort and your responsibilities, and status is how your social status is actually enhanced by the fact you work with the Red Cross. So that's how your family or your community perceive your contribution to the Red Cross, Red Crescent. In many countries it's prestigious, and others less so. It depends a lot on the reputation of the national society. So these are extrinsic motivators. So if you want to have a good idea, perhaps, of why women seem to be doing better in motivation and motivational outcomes, then you would these are the results. So the causes would be around here. So Karine, how are we doing with time?
We're good. Perhaps, I don't know if somebody want to share the hypothesis. Otherwise, I can have mine, which is quite easy. But I don't know if somebody is feeling courageous. Yeah, Elina.
You're muted, Elina.
You're muted. Don't worry.
Yeah. So it's difficult, but it's a good exercise. Maybe women are more in line or satisfied with the type of leadership that we have in the Red Cross, and are less demanding in terms of extrinsic motivations, like with their rewards and status and so on. Yeah, that's a guess.
I think that's a pretty okay. So let's so it's not a guess, it's a hypothesis. So the beauty of stating a hypothesis is that if you're wrong, you still learn something. So actually, you're not wrong or right. It's a hypothesis is validated or it's not validated. So you're not wrong or right. And sometimes you can pose a hypothesis that is wrong just to prove a point. So, but anyway, so I think you made 2 hypotheses here. So let me try to rephrase them. The first is that women have lower expectations in terms of returns and rewards, and therefore they're more easily satisfied because they're asking for less, so they get less, and it's still okay because they don't expect more. Whereas men tend perhaps to expect more, and therefore they're more easily frustrated when they don't get enough. So it's just a difference in expectation. So even though they get the same rewards, the same returns, it just happens that men don't find it's not enough, and women are saying, "What's that? It's pretty good already." Yeah. Okay. So that's one assumption, and that would explain why women have higher scores in extrinsic motivation than men do. So
I wanted to say something.
Yeah.
So just a little precision, because you said returns and rewards a couple times. I think the difference between the scores of men and women is even larger in the status.
Yes, that's right.
Thing.
Yeah.
So just making this point that maybe the status parts, how it's perceived outside of the Red Cross, how their work is perceived outside. Maybe that's also something which could have an impact.
Yeah, thanks, Moto. I think it's probably safer to go where the difference is the greatest. And I can tell you, I mean, if you're a guy, I mean, this is my personal experience. If I go see a bunch of guys in a bar and I say I work for the Red Cross, I'm pretty much of a sissy. You know, if I'm with a stockbroker, a banker, and even a construction worker, I'm pretty much of a sissy. And that's the way I feel, right? So, and I can feel condescending looks. So I don't derive much pride in what I do because of the Red Cross. I like my job and I like what I do within the Red Cross, but saying that I work for the Red Cross does not bring me particular status among the guys. It might with the ladies, which is great, but not among the guys. So this is part, I think, of our patriarchal society, if I dare say, where we expect men to bring home more money. And so they're more powerful when they have high-paying jobs where they have to work a lot, where they have to invest a lot of energy, than being say a school teacher. That would be another example of men not feeling high status if they're a school teacher, whereas for many women it's really a calling, and they're fine with that. So I think Moto is pointing out that it's probably the difference in status, which is the greatest among the extrinsic motivators, that might explain part of the difference. Women just have more pride in being with the Red Cross, Red Crescent than men on average. How does that sound? Yeah.
Sounds
How about
good.
you, Salam?
That sounds good for the first hypothesis. And then there was the second one, which is about leadership, where there's, I think, larger differences. So
yes,
maybe the second one is.
Yeah. So here, so Irina was saying that what was the so the differences in leadership is about it's about a feeling of being listened to, of being understood, and being encouraged. And actually, I think the biggest difference, to go to Moto's technique of going to straight where the biggest difference is in encouraging. That's actually a very big difference. It's of 0.5. That's a very big difference. And so encouraging, maybe it's worth seeing in what the actual indicators of encouraging is. So if I go leadership, so I'll filter is active. We're with a female. So if I go in leadership, encouragement, the question is, my supervisor encourages me to ask questions. And we also saw that women scored highest in engagement, right? This is where you have the biggest difference. And engagement is measured by, I share my ideas with others to improve the team. So we can actually see a mechanical link between the two. If my supervisor encourages me to ask questions, he probably also encourages me to answer questions. And actually, some of these conversations might be about improving the team, sharing ideas. So there's actually a mechanical link, a direct link between being encouraged to say something and feeling that I can share my ideas with others. So I think that would validate Alina's assumption, which I forgot exactly what your assumption, but I think there is. So I would even take that a step further, and I don't know what you think. This could be about inclusion, about gender inclusion. Maybe some supervisors are going a little further in encouraging women rather than men to share their ideas and to encourage them to participate. So it wouldn't be every single supervisor, but there might be this might be an effect of inclusion policies, of this tremendous effort that many national societies, and including Secretariat, are going towards really being more inclusive, being more gender inclusive. That would be, so we can't really validate that assumption, but what we can say is there's a direct link, probably a strong correlation, at least, between feeling encouraged to say something and wanting to share your ideas on how to improve the team. How are we doing? Yeah.
Gabriel, could it be that men, we could even say, are more scared to put forward their ideas in case they get ridiculed, whereas women will dare to jump in?
Well, it's something I noticed in Cyprus, to tell you the truth. And Motiro was there. I mean, we had a very interesting situation in Cyprus when we did the Moti workshop, as we had a lot of very strong women and men who were not doing well, and clearly they were not being encouraged even to speak up, and they were feeling bad. Yes, so that I would say for Cyprus, that's what we noticed, and that's what the data told us for Cyprus. That men were more afraid to talk, and they got slammed each time they did.
And also maybe the fact that women may be feeling less autonomous, and they will use any opportunities to claim their position.
Okay, so that's another interesting point. There is something that seems to contradict self-determination theory. Is what self-determination theory says is that usually, not always, but usually, the three needs of autonomy, belonging, competence mediate the effects of leadership and of the intrinsic motivators. In other words, leadership is about nurturing the sense of autonomy, belongingness, and competence. This means a good leader actually makes you feel more autonomous and makes you feel that you belong in the team and makes you feel more competent. And so logically, it should be the reverse. We should have women should be feeling more autonomous, women should be feeling more belonging, and women should be feeling more competent. So this is strange. It sort of goes against self-determination theory. But I think what Ekaterini is saying makes sense. If women are actually frustrated, so they're on the rise, right? They're being encouraged, and they actually feel that they're not autonomous enough, they will then, feel that they haven't reached their optimum in autonomy. Therefore, they will score themselves lower in autonomy just because they want to have more autonomy. So if indeed we are in an inclusion process where women are encouraged to speak up and to speak up mostly, well, then the fact that they need to be encouraged, the fact that it's something that they really appreciate, but that's not obvious, is a way of, for them of realizing that actually, if they need to be encouraged more than men, maybe they're less autonomous. So that's an assumption. Maybe women are discovering that they could have more autonomy. So with this, movement towards more women inclusion, there's also a realization from the women that actually they could be more autonomous. Is that what you're saying, Ekaterini?
Well,
Elina,
the red cross is related to taking care of other people, of other people's needs. And this seems to be what women theoretically are naturally doing automatically, without expecting any kind of payment back. And the Red Cross is encouraging this. The idea of the Red Cross is encourage this. You do whatever you can, the best you can. You do even more than you can for people because they are in need.
And then you have a low well-being.
Yes, and it comes to the point of sacrificing.
With the rewards that are not very high. It seems like quite similar to a lot of boards we saw. I think Elina wants to say something.
Yeah, I started to think, okay, now we come from different national societies, and there's federation people and so on. But if more national societies are like mine, that most 80% are women, so probably the culture is also such that it might like favor women. And the type of how, like what gives you encouragement or power, for example, is more the like also what Ekaterini says, the type of way of working that women are used to also in the society is more through listening and caring and so on, and it's less about extrinsic motivators. So then women also feel like more comfortable in the environment. Because actually, I mean, in many national societies, I think that it's men who are the minority and
Yes.
might feel excluded than women.
Nancy?
Yeah, Nancy.
Quick thing, there's someone typing without being muted, so if that person could mute themselves, it would... no problem. I think Nancy wants to talk now.
Thank you. Well, I agree totally with Elena, because in my red society, have the same problem, maybe I can say, because in Mexico is too strong. How to say?
You can say it in Spanish. Lo puedes decir en
thank you.
español.
El problema de género es muy fuerte.
Gender differences, problems of gender.
Because in the men, it's so strong here. For the women, it's very, very difficult to sobresalir in this.
To be understood.
Overcome.
To
Overcome.
Overcome. Yeah, sobresalir.
Sí.
Well, this is
So it's more difficult to overcome these challenges, I think you tried to say.
When you're a woman.
And I think, Nancy, you also made a point here in the community of practice, where you said, from my point of view, most of them have a high level of commitment. So most of women have a high level of commitment, unlike men, due to gender competition. So that's also a point you made, which is an interesting hypothesis. I'm not sure we can really test that hypothesis with the data, but it's interesting to look into.
Yeah. Any other comments on the hypothesis, or perhaps Gabriel, you want to move on the SDT, or I think we went quite a lot on the SDT. We still have 25 minutes.
Okay. So let me see my notes. Okay. So, well, actually, I think we progressed faster than I thought we would, and that was very insightful. I mean, I thank you all for sharing your assumptions. I think they're all valid assumptions, and I think one point we can make is, well, first of all, it's not one team with one supervisor, but we do come from the same culture. So I think what you said, we can relate. Many national societies might be in the same situation, being more about nurturing and caring because there are a higher percentage of women than men. Yet sometimes within these same organizations, sometimes men are in power, so that might create discrepancies. And it would be very interesting, probably to, and maybe we'll be able to do that soon, to correlate the gender of the supervisor with the gender of the team member, because it just might be the difference of gender that's problematic, or being the same gender. I don't know. So this is something that in the future we'll have to look into, because that might explain a lot. I also remember from my course in economics 40 years ago.
Don't say the time, Gabriel. Don't say the time.
is that there seems to be a trend, and I'm pretty sure it's still verified now, as in all the industries, in all the companies where you start having a majority of women over men, the salaries decrease. So we found that in the schooling system, in education, in nursing, in sociology, psychology. As soon as you start getting a critical mass of women, the salaries go down. And there's a number of reasons for that. One is that women are more modest and more shy when it comes to wanting more salaries. They're less likely to go on strike if they don't get their annual raise. But also because of status. It's I think part of the patriarchy is that men are less attracted to an industry that's dominated by women because the values attached to these seem to not fit with how they want to see themselves. So that's a question of status. And it might be what we have in the Red Cross. I mean, the Red Cross was founded by 4 or 5 guys, and now it's more dominated by women. So this is it's I think if we did Motiro exercises, across different industries, we might find this to be to hold true elsewhere too. But I would also like to point out that there is a process of gender inclusion that's happening. So I don't know what's happening in your organizations, but I can tell you in the IFRC Secretariat, there isn't a day when we're not reminded that the guys really need to behave and allow the women to speak and to be more soft-spoken and not to behave like idiots the way we used to behave. It didn't work with the old guys, by the way. It's not working with me. But anyway, the younger generation is probably more apt. And so this I think is positive, right? And so if we can see that women score higher on motivational outcomes, that's something that would need to be celebrated. So I highly encourage you to do Motiro surveys, in teams within your national society and to see what types of gender differences you see.
And you can make the same analysis for ages as well.
So we can do that since we have a little time.
The same, and perhaps we can also show the 2 different ways of showing the results, Gabriel.
Okay. So first, the filter. So right now, the filter is active. So I'm going to put everybody, and then I'm going to see, we're going to discover this together because I haven't
No, we
done
don't
it
have,
yet.
you have to share the screen, Gabriel.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, indeed, I do. Okay. So we filtered male and female. So now we have everybody, and we'll see if we see differences. So over 59, I don't know how many people we have that are above 59, beyond, oh, we have more than me. Okay, so this is interesting. So the old people like me, so how many people do we have? Let me check. So we have 6 people over 59. I'm one of them. As you can see, they score very high in fulfillment, in meaning actually they score very high in practically everything. I mean, that's the maximum possible score. I've never seen this. And this is men and women, it's not just me. Because they're going to retire soon, they're not that happy to leave. Clearly, they want to continue. and their well-being score is actually higher. So as you know, happiness is a U-shaped curve. So the older you get, the happier you get. That's a positive note about aging. So that's the people above 59, 60 over. So then let's go see the young generation. Okay, well, sorry. sorry. So it's it's not as high, right? Let's see. So let's see the people in the middle.
Can I at the same time ask, what if there's like only one man in a group? Can you still see the
No.
results by sex, because then everybody knows who it is, or if there's only one who is over 59 or
Yeah, so I can demonstrate what happens. So let's see if I'm the only guy. So no, over 59.
Yeah.
See, cannot apply filters. So we need to have at least 5 people per category to see these results, or else indeed you would guess who it is.
And
So,
just a quick note, that's why in the gender filter, the other is disabled, because generally there's not many people who identify neither as men or women. So, but if there's more than 5 people within a large group, like if we're on a circle level and there's many people, and then we have more than 5 people who identify as something other than male and female, then it can show.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. So as Gary pointed out, there's another way of seeing these results, and that's using the automated report feature. And so the reason why we designed this other way of seeing the results is that you get lots of information on the dashboards, and then people tend to go all over the place, and we click and we get all excited, and we don't really, there's no narrative really. So what we did is to facilitate team discussions around the survey results, we designed this narrative, this automatic report that follows the self-determination narrative. So in other words, we start with how do we feel? So how do we really feel? So we start with that number one motivational outcome is how we feel. And then here you have the distribution of answers. So at work, I feel strong and vigorous. I feel emotionally drained from my work. I feel frustrated with my work. And now these are frequencies, if you remember. So for example, every day I feel strong and vigorous, or very often I feel emotionally drained from my work, or I rarely feel frustrated by my work. Then we move on to what we call engagements. So engagement is the, how much we engage in our work. So so if I could choose, I would continue working in my team. So the idea is to start with the motivational outcomes, and we just look at the distribution of answers, which are actually very meaningful, when you're, with 5 or 10 or 15 of colleagues, you can actually start opening up on how you really feel about these different things, and that's how the teams can come up with solutions. Here, the next thing that we would do, logically, if we follow self-determination theory, is say, okay, well, let's look at the 3 basic needs and see how we're scoring in autonomy, on belonging, and on competence. Because that might be an indication of why people are not feeling energetic. If they don't feel autonomous, or if they feel they're being ostracized from the group, then it would take a toll on their mental well-being. But we also know that these 3 basic needs can either be thwarted or encouraged by the supervisor. So we look at leadership. So how does leadership play into this? Well, you have the distribution of answers for listening, understanding, and encouragement. And so this is where it gets a little tricky for the supervisor, because the supervisor should be in the room and needs to listen to this. So the supervisor is actually getting feedback from his or her own team, leadership skills and listening, understanding, and encouragement. And so, a good leader would actually take this into account, and would not get offended or defensive, but say, this is for me an opportunity to improve my leadership skills, and therefore, in doing so, to better satisfy the 3 basic needs of my team members. And then we all win, because everybody will be feeling better and everybody will be more engaged. So we'll have, we'll perform better as a team and therefore have better results. And in the end, part of the credit will go back to the supervisor. And then last but not least, we have what we call management, and these are the extrinsic motivators. And here you can recognize them. I have the opportunity to develop my social network at work. And so in my experience with these conversations, it goes towards the reward system. This seems to be the most problematic in the Red Cross Red Crescent, is the reward system. I am fairly rewarded considering the responsibilities I have, and I'm fairly rewarded for the work I do well. Usually the scores are a little lower when it comes to rewards than it is for opportunities to develop my social network or to learn interesting skills, or even status. My family and friends appreciate the work I do for the team.
Perhaps even more than for volunteers.
So staff are even more frustrated with the reward system. Yes, absolutely. Well, there are two reasons for that. First of all, because they are counting on the reward system to earn a living, and that's one. So obviously they want to be paid more because they need the money, whereas volunteers are not doing it to earn money in most cases. The second is that staff cannot leave their job just because they're not paid enough. They need to find another job. And that's complicated. So whereas when you're a volunteer, you can just leave. You won't lose much by leaving, by stopping your volunteering work. So that's why very often we see that staff tend to be much more frustrated with rewards than volunteers. There. So Yarin, I think we have.
I think we've done it. Perhaps you saw we only play mainly with the gender differences, and then played with the structure of the SDT, so outcomes, and so what could be the cause of this result, and then make those hypotheses. So I think that's you learn to do. I think that's what we're going to do in the next weeks, playing perhaps a bit more, not only with gender, but on the different outcomes, and playing with the intrinsic, extrinsic, and leadership. So we will move on with this. I don't know, Gabriel, if you want to say something more about the next plans we will have in the next weeks. I think that's mainly SDT and those points, but perhaps you have something else.
Yeah. So yes, indeed. So the idea behind this program is to practice using a theory to explain some things by making hypotheses and then testing the hypotheses by looking at the survey data. There's another way of doing it, which is complementary, is once you have the survey data and you make your hypotheses and you check the data, you also need to discuss it with your teams. So there are really two steps. One is you analyze the data as we have right now. We make hypotheses. We see if the data can validate or invalidate these hypotheses. But then the next step would be to actually talk to the team and to say, well, how do you feel about this? Here our score for this is relatively low. What's your idea? What are your reasons? And so that's another way of validating hypotheses at the team level, which is something that's a little more difficult for us to do because we're not really a team. So in the coming weeks, we will be working on self-determination theory as a tool to explain motivation. And so we will be posting questions and exercises, and so we're counting on everybody to just try to answer these questions. But more importantly, this community of practice is about improving motivation, not just understanding motivation, but improving motivation, especially motivation of volunteers. So this means that we will go a little deeper in these three needs. So how do you improve people's sense of autonomy? How do you improve your sense of autonomy? So for the women among you, clearly there's a will to gain more autonomy. That was, I think, one of the assumptions. Mm-hmm. So then we will, soon enough see what, and actually Ekaterini showed me one exercise that we can maybe test on how you set yourself as an objective to increase your autonomy and how you think that through and how you can actually carve out more autonomy by yourself. Because if you expect somebody else to give you more autonomy, you're not autonomous. the whole point of being autonomous is you don't need somebody to give you autonomy. You take that autonomy. And that might be a gender difference. Maybe men, they just take their autonomy. They push their way, through the ranks. They self-promote, and they just, fight for their autonomy. And maybe, for cultural reasons, I'm sure it's not biological. For cultural reasons, maybe it's more difficult for women, and therefore they're more frustrated. So then, ask yourselves, how can I increase my autonomy? Now, what can I do to feel more autonomous? What can I do to feel more autonomous? And that's not asking my boss to give me more autonomy. That won't work.
Yeah, perhaps just to sum up something that we learned so far is that by understanding better motivation, you will be more motivated, because automatically it will be the recipe for you to be more motivated. You will use this in your daily life, and that I don't know. I know all of us. I think we made perhaps Dancy. I don't know if you made a Motiro exercise with your national society, but the others I know they all did an exercise. For me, it was a result. I took more self-determination on my own motivation. So I felt responsible for it. I was not complaining anymore.
Yeah, that's true. I noticed. And this is why we're calling it Leadership Program. It's about our own leadership. So we're honing our own leadership skills and our leadership mindsets, so that way we can be more autonomous. We can, increase our confidence and competence, and actually be more inclusive with other people and therefore with ourselves. So that's why it's about leadership in that sense. So that's the program for the coming weeks. I hope you will stay with us. You're doing great. I mean, so I haven't done really report cards, but I mean, a lot of you are getting lots of points and probably have gone more than the 25 points to demonstrate your engagement within the community of practice. The quizzes are actually not that difficult. So a lot of you got, maximum of points for the quizzes. There will be a quiz soon coming on self-determination theory and the survey results. So please do that. And then the main objective is for you to do a Motiro exercise in your national society, in your branch, with your team, or even with your family, whatever. But if you do it yourself, you will feel the full power of data and theory when it comes to improving a team. So,
make a
yes?
point on what Corinne said just before. How many women do you know that have the possibility to do what you did, Corinne? Understanding more of motivation, building your own self-development. How many women do you think have actually this capability?
That's a question for you, Karine.
Sorry,
and this applies for men as well. The fact that I may understand the theory behind it and how strong it may be doesn't necessarily make me more capable in putting it in practice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whether
So
I'm a man or a woman, and maybe for women it may be even more difficult, especially in some societies.
So, Karen, you're the lady here, so you have to answer the question. I have my own opinion on this because it's also my experience.
For me, it's clear. It's clear, but I don't know if there is a gender difference on this. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think it would be the same for men and women.
Around you at work and outside work, family, friends, neighborhood, and see how many people could do something similar to what you did in reality. I mean, you don't need to answer now. Just keep an eye for the next 2-3 days.
Okay, I will ask, but I mean, in my surrounding, I would say men or women the same. Perhaps it will depend pretty much on where you go. Perhaps you go to the football team with a lot of men. Perhaps they will be less interested and will not dedicate time for this. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I have a point about the theory. I think I agree with you, Ekaterini, that if it's theoretical and not put into practice, you will not change. But a theory is an explanation that guides you in putting things into practice. So with the MOTI program, we do have solutions which are about practice. That's about mindfulness, reflection, journaling, setting yourself objectives, prototyping. There's a whole bunch of different activities that somebody can choose to do, and you experience the increase in autonomy. You can experience the increase in competence and autonomy. Something that, and once you experience it, you like it. And so then you are actually motivated to go further. If people think it's theoretical, it's not for them, then obviously they can learn they can read about the self-determination theory, but if they don't put solutions into practice, if they don't use self-discipline, then it stays theoretical. But it's not because we have a theory that it must stay theoretical. The theory guides our practice, but it's the practice that makes us change.
Okay, and you mentioned experience, so experiential learning.
Yes.
Is very important, and we don't learn on our own. We learn
and for
in
me,
tips.
just something else. For me, I apply it in my, not every day. Every day I try to shape my day in a way that in the end I will feel good and motivated.
This is very important.
So it's step by step. It could be every day. It could be then another objective. So it depends. I think a lot of people it's 5. Here. So we have done 1 hour. We have to close. So thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.
Some people are already leaving. It was a very nice talk today. Thanks for your insight, your analysis, and see you in 1 month, I think. I don't know, Gabriel, if you want to add something.
No, it's great. I love this conversation. Thank you so much. And I hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. All the
Bye-bye.
best.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.